Welcome back to Chillwave and the Jetwaves. My name is Benjamin Burkout. I'm your host this evening, and I am joined by one of my very best friends. Why don't you tell them what your name is and a little bit about yourself?
Hi. I'm Noah, and I'm a firefighter and a carpenter and um, future police officer, um, musician, pastor's son extraordinaire.
Son of
That's me.
pastor extraordinaire, one might say.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody knows Joe. Everybody.
Should
I
I
go around
censor his
town.
name
And
so that you don't get
no,
doxxed?
no,
No, leave
no.
that in.
Everybody already knows where I live, and everybody already knows who my dad is. So
Future police officer, pastor's son extraordinaire. Anything else?
yeah, not really. That pretty much sums it up.
Gosh golly, what are you going to be talking to us about today? Talking with us. What are you going to be? You get the gist of the question.
Yeah. Um, well, really, so like in my journey to become a fully well-rounded individual by the age of 25, um, I realized that like my education and stuff that I probably should know was lacking, especially in like the economics and scientific area that I should know, especially as a Christian with a lot of agnostic and I guess mainly just agnostic. I don't think I have any friends that are super atheists. Um, but we like to talk about like God and science and stuff like that and how it fits and how it doesn't. Um, and one of the things that I found super interesting is like the theories about like quantum physics and how Einstein's theory of general relativity um, fits in with quantum physics. And if we can really put some serious effort, which like Cornell University is, I think, the biggest one in the world that's putting some serious time and effort and actually is giving people PhDs in something called loop quantum gravity, which is taking Einstein's theory of general relativity and putting it um, into quantum physics. You can really unlock some crazy secrets of the universe if we decided to do that. And I thought that was super, super cool. So that's probably what I'll talk about today.
That sounds
Get along.
wonderful to me. And I am not super educated in it, so I will let you kind of take the reins if you want.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still like getting more educated in it because I'm not a scientist by any means, don't have a PhD or anything. But really, I think that like it really starts off with kind of like a really super um like base knowledge of both the theories of relativity, where special relativity is kind of like the whole thing with speed and light, and then you get into the wave particle duality and of how like light behaves. But I won't get into that. I won't get that nerdy. Um,
You know what?
when you get into general, I might have to dip into that a little bit. When you get into the theories of general relativity, um, how I got it explained to me by a professor is pretty much just like think of gravity um, not being a force emitted by the Earth, but like if you take all of space-time um, and put that as a plane, so like space in itself out in the big vast universe um, is it like a think of it like a video game kind of like you're kind of like when you play Minecraft creative
Okay.
and you do like super flat, think of that as space and think of like when you put anything in your world, think that of like having like you build a house, right? So when you build a house, that's like putting the planet Earth into this space. So as we know, if we have a plane, like a flat surface, and you take something like a ball, like the Earth and the stars, and you put it in, depending on how big that sphere is, it's going to create a dip, a divot into the space that we have, right? So that's gravity, and that's what is when something gets brought into that little dip in the space-time continuum, that's what's causing the gravitational like fields and all of that stuff. So like the moon having all of its effects on like waves and stuff like that and like getting all in, that's above my pay grade, but like getting into the whole like super gravitational stuff with the moon and all of that, that's all just like indents in space-time. And so when you look at quantum gravity, um you look at it as quantum physics in general is just a study at everything at the smallest level. So, like, one of the biggest experiments is kind of like the split particle experiment that explains the wave particle duality in light. So, when you have a I guess, a wave or a particle of light, depending on, because that's what the whole experience based off of. When you take a particle of light and you split it, it really allows you to see that light is behaves either as a wave or a particle depending on how you are viewing it, which is that's the only to my knowledge, there could be other things. I haven't come across one, but to my knowledge, that's pretty much the only thing on this planet that behaves that way. And that's kind of super interesting. But when it gets to gravity, loop quantum gravity is taking all of this and making mathematical equations and stuff like that, and really getting into like the Big Bang and into black holes and stuff like that, and opening up other dimensions and stuff. Because if we can look at this indent in space time at the smallest level, it's possible that we can open up, and we can look into black holes and stuff like that and see into other dimensions that we can't see. And one of the things is, depending on who you are as a human being, um, it's like the Big Bang is pretty much the big focus of this whole um, theory in loop gravity. And there's a couple books that if you are like interested in the theory of loop quantum gravity, I recommend you read. And one of them is written by someone named Gambini. Um, and oh my goodness, I forgot their first names, but like Gambini and Poulin. It was written in 1997. It's about spine foam formalism, and then there's something called tetrad formalism, and these are all just like in tetrad formalism, it talks about like a gravitational field in one form, and there's a whole bunch of like mathematical formulas that it's above my pay grade. Um, but there's something called the Minkowski vector and I'm sorry, the Minkowski vector and the Minkowski metric that they use to look super deep into gravity, and it talks about like the torsion and curvature expressions um, of certain like equations and into gravity, which again, that's super above my pay grade to explain all that stuff because I would just get it all wrong. But really, on a more like basic level, the Big Bang happened, and I think that most people on the planet kind of agree it happened. I'm like a Jesus freak, um, as one would say, and I'm very certain that it happened. And especially getting into kind of like the stuff about like absolute zero and how hot like the Big Bang was and stuff like that. You realize that like that can't happen just because of nothing. You know what I mean? And so one of the theories that's kind of interesting to me is that there was another universe that kind of did what our universe is going to do, and it imploded on itself, sorry, and it created a whole another universe in a whole different dimension. And if we are able to go look at through all of this stuff with like the 3+1 decomposition and splitting of space-time and like the Hamiltonian, I think I'm saying that correctly, the Hamiltonian formalism of general relativity, which is basically just kind of combining general relativity with standard quantum mechanics in space-time so that you can really see everything in like a formula level and you can look at space-time as waves and you can write that into equations and stuff, which some really crazy smart people came up with that stuff. And it's like looking into other dimensions, which maybe is something that we'll never be able to do in the lifetime of the human race. Maybe like God just doesn't want us to do it. But like personally, I think that if we put some crazy amount of time and effort into that instead of into other things, especially as like a race in general, we would see a lot of crazy payoffs. I don't know about you, Ben, but like figuring out how the Big Bang happened, why it happened, and like the kind of logistics behind that is something that's pretty intriguing to me,
Mm-hmm.
especially being like a firm believer in the Bible and like knowing like like it talks about in the Bible how God spoke everything into existence, and I think that if he's speaking stuff into existence, it's gonna probably be a pretty loud bang, personally. But like um kind of just like seeing scientifically how all of that stuff happens. Um and I'm getting into some like interesting conversations with some people that I'm friends with about it. But like because the Big Bang was the start of everything and like everything that we can quantify and realize and our human brains can comprehend, um, there was literally the absence of everything before it, which means if you're going to accept the theory or like accept the notion that it just happened, um, then you have to be able to accept the fact that like it's possible that like babies can just pop out of nowhere and like water particles and like plant particles and humans and like plants and animals and stuff like that can just pop in buildings could theoretically be able to just kind of like pop out of the sky. And if you believe that, that's cool, I guess. I don't personally believe that. I don't know if you believe that, Ben. I don't know if that's like your wheelhouse, but
I do not. I have heard the Coca Cola theory before, which is what you're describing.
right.
Um, you're familiar with the Coca Cola theory.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't super agree with that. Um, just because I think fundamentally there doesn't have to be an outside force for there to have been a Big Bang, or that outside force could have been, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I'm also stalking a supermarket while I'm talking. Um, that outside
Like
force
kind of
could
like a
have been,
godlike figure
or it could have been the implosion of the last universe,
of
like you
another
said.
universe. Right.
Um, but I admittedly you have done more research on this than I have, so
Well, like, so when it comes to the Big Bang, and I was writing a big paper about why, like, all the scientific reasons why God is real and all that stuff. And it let me, like, research into the Big Bang and how it happened. And it let me understand, like, just how cold absolute zero is. And, like, the process of the Big Bang is that, at least to my understanding, and if I'm wrong, then feel free to correct me. Um, but from, like, my research I've gotten, it is like, it is, you have to take something which wouldn't be there, and you would have to slam it into the densest point in the universe, which isn't a thing because density and speed aren't concepts because the things that quantify those concepts aren't don't exist yet. So like you would have to slam it into the densest point in the universe at speeds that are beyond human comprehension in a temperature to get an explosion that is over 100 million times hotter than anything that, or a million times, excuse me, over a million times hotter than anything. No, it was 100 million. I'm looking at this paper right now. I'm sorry. It was 100 million times hotter than anything that the human beings on the planet Earth have created. And in a place that is so cold that matter cannot exist, that it doesn't like that happening kind of just happening. I just don't see that. I feel like there has to be a reason for that personally, which I mean, if somebody could explain to me like a universe where that could just happen just because, um, like we have tried to put every single condition to recreate like an explosion on that level, and it's just like impossible for humans to do that. Which I mean, humans are limited, especially in like a
You gotta
huge,
go
large.
get your potatoes.
Yeah, I do. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm back, and I have my potatoes.
Lovely.
I don't know if you're recording this whole
I
time.
was just I was just telling the people um, that so far this episode we've unlocked storage, which I didn't want to interrupt your thing with something in the game, but we finally unlocked a storage room. Sort of did some reorganizing, that sort of thing. Um, I put a motivational speaker right behind my cashier's head.
Okay, fine.
Um, and also, I was telling them that to feel free to leave comments. I was saying, well, actually, I'll just say it now that you're back. To our 15 viewers, please feel free to leave comments about your own views, and make sure to be respectful of each other and everything, and of Noah. But if you have different views, I'm sure Noah would be happy to hear them and see where there may be flaws in his views, or see how maybe he could uh, ask you to look at your view from a different light.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think like the one thing that I really, really don't like is when, especially when it comes to science, and I'm not a scientist, so especially when it comes to loop quantum gravity, that is something that like me not being a scientist or a super, super educated mathematician, that is really, really, really difficult um, to kind of comprehend. So I've been reading a couple of different things about it. So I could be getting some of those things wrong, especially when it comes to stuff like the 3+1 decomposition of splitting space time, and like when it comes to like the tetrad formula. What is it? Tetrad formalism, and like all that stuff. Um, so if you know more than I do, I really enjoy learning about this kind of stuff. So I'd be more than happy to hear you out. But I also want to have a conversation with somebody who knows kind of about this stuff and believes kind of like what Ben was talking about which I feel like you can explain it a little bit more when I'm done, but like kind of how like the Big Bang Theory could just happen, and there doesn't have to be um, any outside forces interfering with our universe, whether that be God or another universe imploding on itself or anything interdimensionally to create our universe. I'd be interested to hear that and how that could work. what were you saying, Ben, when it comes to like the whole Coca-Cola theory thing? So I kind of like went downstairs to grab my food when you were explaining that.
I did not say anything else on it while you were gone. Um, my take is that the universe is so vastly different from something like a building or a Coca Cola
Yeah.
bottle, especially in regards to the Big Bang, that I don't really think it's comparable.
Okay. Okay. So I have this question. So
Mm.
you know how the universe, like you believe the universe is just ever expanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you believe that?
To the
So,
best of my knowledge, yeah.
so with the universe expanding infinitely, right? Basically just streamlining it because I don't have the knowledge to explain in a way that makes sense. But basically, our universe um, is going to like I'll start with our galaxy because that makes more sense. So you know, like our galaxy, for example, is on a collision course with another exact copy of our galaxy.
I was not aware of
I
that.
don't know if you know that. Yeah, so our galaxy, and this was like I think in 2007 when they figured this out. So our galaxy is actually, oh, let me just look it up and figure out the exact name of the galaxy. Um, but yeah, our galaxy is on a collision course with another galaxy, and it's pretty much identical to ours, right? And when those two galaxies collide, it's going to be the like we're not going to be alive for it. It's going to be the next like 300 years, 400 years probably. But like when that happens, the impact that that will have on our galaxy, like the universe in general, is so astronomical. It's almost incomprehensible. In many ways, it is incomprehensible to the human mind, but it's going to create more than it destroys, if that makes sense. So, like, in the same sense that an event like that is more than capable of happening, like, on a universal level, and my kind of thinking, and the thinking of people who are studying loop quantum gravity, because there's two kinds of quantum gravity. Like there's the M theory and the loop theories, which I've only been really getting into the loop theories because that kind of fits into what I want to learn about, like how we can look at other dimensions and like go through black holes and stuff like that with and going into like rifts in space time, which would theoretically make stuff like time travel and like um going forward in the future and stuff like that, which I was listening to somebody expand on the kind of like Neil deGrasse Tyson thing that he was talking about with Joe Rogan about how like just because, well, to our knowledge, because I mean, if it happened, the government would probably be on top of that, of somebody coming back in time being like, hey, I'm from the future. That hasn't happened that we know of, so it's probably safe to say that nobody's cracked that code. But
Mm-hmm.
um, there's always the chance that it's happened, and our government's just, you know what I mean, not letting us know that. But it's really possible that we've cracked out how to go forward in time. And so, and how loopholes are like a one-way ticket to go forward, not necessarily backwards. Um, so like if we're able to like crack stuff like that, we could really unlock a lot of secrets about the universe, especially with the Big Bang, because there is a small possibility um that it just because like kind of how like Ben was saying how like the universe is just it's not anything that like our brain. really can understand, kind of like a building or like a piece of grass or like a field. Um, so it is possible that all that stuff did just quote unquote just happen with nothing. Um, but that chance is so infinitesimal that it almost doesn't really necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things. To my knowledge, again, there might be some scientific theory or there might be something that I missed where that infinitesimal number grows larger and larger with different conditions and stuff that are liable in our universe. But I think the coolest thing about quantum gravity is that it would let us explore how we can use stuff like Schrodinger's equation and stuff like that, and we can use it in studying black holes to possibly not only time travel, but to do stuff and put the planet Earth in a better position. Which this is all just like kind of like theoretical, like sci-fi stuff, low key. But theoretically, we should be able to use it to put the Earth in a better position. Um, what's it called? Not economically. What's it called, Ben? When I'm talking about the environmentally, I guess would be what I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
for. Um, because we can, if we can really harness black holes and going forwards and backwards, we should be able to. Which again, this is super ahead and super sci-fi, but this is kind of why it's cool because if we can really understand all this, we should be able to use that like personally, and I don't mean like looking at a black hole in space and harnessing that, but I mean kind of like the whole reverse engineering thing. If we can see it on the smallest scale and we can recreate those conditions to make a black hole and use that to go forward and backwards in time, we could theoretically use that in a small way, in like a small pocketed way. And we could use that for anything we wanted to, which I don't necessarily know if I trust the American government with that personally, but I mean, it works with all these metrics and equations and stuff. Um, where there's people who are like Schrodinger and Wheeler DeWitt who put it into mathematical form, and they use stuff like the gauge invariance, and like I can send you a picture of some of these equations a little bit
Mm-hmm.
later.
I'll throw them up on
Um,
screen.
but like it gets super, like it is so above my pay grade, it's not even funny. And it's like they put all of this stuff on paper so you can see it. And it's like it's crazy. It's crazy. But I think us as a people could use that in so many different ways. More so just than looking into different dimensions, but like I was saying, when the study of space and at a quantum level is something we really need to understand. Like, if, for example, in 250 years, when we're on a collision course with another galaxy, how could we, as a human race, stop that or like get technology to a place where we can, not have our galaxy or universe blown up? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just kind of stuff like that, or like there's black holes and stuff along the galaxy, and the universe that are kind of just opening up and that have been there for a while that are getting bigger that scientists didn't think were going to get bigger and stuff like that. So like we kind of need to understand all of that stuff if we want to prevent or at least kind of understand its effect on us. And right now that's not really quantifiable to the human brain because I'm not going to say we don't care because a lot of places that have been looking into this ever since um, all of these older scientists like Schrodinger and Einstein and all that like came up with all of these equations and stuff. But like we don't really care about it as a people, I guess, which is a little bit concerning because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people talk about how like space is the future for us as a society, but we don't know anything about it. Same thing with the ocean, but like we don't know anything about it, and that concerns me. I don't know how you feel about that, Ben.
I'm pretty
Or where
comfortable with
like
it.
you're cool with it?
An NGO. I'm okay with there being things we don't know.
Do you like want there to be more things we don't know or less?
Less, but I'm not going to be the
Okay,
person to figure it out.
okay, that's fair. And that's like kind of like a little final thing before I make sure my oven's turned off. Um, I kind of want. How do you feel about the ocean?
It freaks me out a little.
Okay. Do you think that like how possible do you think that all these like super crazy theories that are coming from it are like? And like you watch like the have you watched like the Meg with Jason Statham in it?
No, I haven't, but
Like
I'm familiar. It's basically Moby Dick, right?
yeah, kind of where like there
But
was
with a
in the Mariana
megalodon.
Trench. Yeah, like in the Mariana Trench, there was like a bunch of CO2 that was stopping megalodons from getting out, basically. And then they went and looked at it and they broke open the cloud of CO2. So they like released the megalodons, I think. It's some variation of that. But like, there's been that comes from all these like camera videos and like found footage stuff of like giant sharks at like the deepest parts of the ocean and stuff. And like, kind of people like have been seeing like these monkey humanoid ish people when you dive down super crazy depths. And everyone's like, "Oh, that's CGI and all that stuff," which is probably like, probably is, you know. But like, we don't know anything about the ocean at all.
Right.
And they're like, we found a bunch of ruins of like Atlantis a while ago, in like different parts of the world, and we found like sunken civilizations all over the place. And like, I mean, how evolution works, I guess. I don't really necessarily think it's super crazy to think that something like that can happen with the right conditions, you know?
Right.
So I don't know how you feel about all that stuff.
I'm willing to believe a lot. Uh,
Okay.
the I think I would believe more in things living in the ocean than I would believe in something like ghosts, to be totally honest.
Really? Okay.
Mm.
Okay. That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. So like, do you think that like the merman stuff is real? Like how real do you think that is?
It's a good question. Um, I would need to see something really convincing,
Okay.
I think, in favor of the merman.
Okay. Are are you like all for? How do you feel about like exploring? Because how science really thinks about it, I guess, it's kind of like the ocean doesn't matter because we're not going to go live down there. But if
Mm-hmm.
anything happens to Earth, we're going to go live in space. So they don't really care about the ocean in
Right.
the grand scheme of things. So do you think that we should be like researching the ocean and seeing what's down there, or what?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it's, my thought is always it's great to put money into things, but how can we be doing that when people are homeless,
Right.
or going without medical care or whatever? Not to get, political or whatever. So,
Right.
um, but if there is funding to be done, uh, I would say, maybe I'd put it below like medical research.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd have to think on it more though. Don't ever quote me on that.
Okay. Before I dip and end this a little bit for me because I had to make sure my oven didn't blow up.
Mm.
Um, you want to know something that kind of bugs me? Kind of just because you brought up um that whole thing. Um, there we should have a cure for cancer by now.
Yeah, man.
Like we we really should. Um, and if you do a little search into Google, I'm not going to do it for you, but if you look up how much does cancer treatment cost in the United States for everything, like not even just human beings, okay?
Oh,
I was about to
yeah.
say, I was going to say, better than most. I think you'll start to see where I'm going with that. Um,
Yeah.
and why, like, insurance and all those companies are really just kind of evil people.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Um Before you go, first question.
yeah,
First question of 3.
yeah,
Would you be down to do another episode of this where you talk about health and wellness?
yeah.
I would be very interested in that. Question number
Like
2, do
tonight.
you have No, not tonight, just someday.
Oh,
2, do you have anything you want to plug here at the end? I don't know if you have a YouTube channel or anything like that.
no, nothing like that. No, um, no, no,
No,
no
that's
plugging
okay.
for me.
That's totally okay. Question number 3, will we be friends forever?
I think so. I think
I
so.
really think so. I gotta be honest. We've been going strong since 4th grade.
Fourth grade.
That's wild.
Yeah,
That's over a decade, my man.
that is almost well over a decade, which is kind of making us feel old because that was 2010 and now it's
2025.
2025. So that was like 15 years ago, damn near.
Hmm.
So, which is really, really weird to think about.
I don't usually ever know how to end these. Shall we both just say bye at the same time?
Sure.
3, 2, 1.
One.
Bye.
Bye.
Yay. One more successful video in the bank.